YouTube, what's going on? Your boy Young Mustard is back, and I'm here with another controversial video. Actually, this one may not be as controversial as my last one, and if you haven't seen that, make sure you go and check that video out where I talked about the 5 most overrated players of all time. That was my opinion, and this video will also be another video about my opinion. And if you have a difference of opinion, make sure you drop it in the comment section. Also subscribe, drop a like, and also make sure you hit the bell to be notified after each and every single video that I post. And if you are not following me on Twitter, make sure you do that after watching this video. The link will be in the description box down below. So without further ado, let's get on with player number 1. Now, James Worthy, depending on who you talk to, is very different in a lot of people's opinions about his basketball career. Some people believe he was just a player that rode the coattails of Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and some people think he's one of the more clutch players that the NBA has ever seen, hence giving him the nickname Big Game James. But when I look at a guy like James Worthy, I see a guy that no matter what always knew his role and really was never given the fairest opportunity to show what he can do on his own team. I mean, people forget that he was the #1 pick in the draft. He was touted while he was in college. He was a really good player, and a lot of people need to understand that. When you look at a guy like James Worthy, what more could he do? He was never going to outshine Magic Johnson or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I mean, he could only stick to the role that he was given, and in those big games he definitely stepped up, like in the 1988 NBA Finals where he won the Finals MVP and in Game 7 dropped a triple-double. So a lot of people need to understand that guys like James Worthy, obviously guys like James Worthy benefit from playing with other great players, but you can use that argument for just about any all-time great, because any all-time great that has won more than one championship played with other great Hall of Fame talent players. And even despite that, this is a guy that still showed up every moment that you needed him to do so, hence he has a Finals MVP. So when you look at a guy like James Worthy, I definitely think he's underrated and deserves to be among the 5 most underrated players in NBA history. Mark Price is one of the more special kind of underrated players, and honestly I really don't know why. I mean, I could give a few reasons as to guess why he's underrated, but I think a lot of people need to give him more credit. My guy Legend of Winning already made a video about Mark Price, so if you haven't seen that, make sure you go check out that video. But in that video he even goes on to explain this guy had a huge impact on how we play basketball today. The way he split pick and rolls, his efficiency. I mean, in today's league, one could make the argument that Mark Price would actually even be better, because today's league is accustomed for guys like him. The way he maneuvered through the pick and roll and his shooting ability and his efficiency, I mean, he paved the way for guys like Steve Nash, guys like Steph Curry. I mean, he really did something and had a huge impact on the NBA today, and a lot of people really need to give him his credit. And his numbers were relatively decent, and he should be in the Hall of Fame. And if I could take a guess as to why he's underrated, maybe it's because he's white, or maybe it's because he lost to Jordan a lot in the first round. I really don't know. But Mark Price, definitely one of the better point guards of his generation, one of the better point guards in the history of the NBA, one of the greatest shooters of all time, and definitely revolutionized basketball as we know it. But a lot of people just don't want to give him that credit. What if I told you that Shawn Marion was a Hall of Fame caliber player during his time in the NBA? Some people may say, oh, that guy with the whack ass shot. Yeah, that guy with the whack ass shot who played great defense on LeBron James in the NBA Finals. Yeah, he should be in the Hall of Fame based on what he actually did in the league when you look at his production during his time there. But because of the lack of all-star appearances or even some all-NBA selections, he's more than likely not going to make the Hall of Fame. But a lot of people forget that during his prime, he was a guy that could give you around 20 points. Yes, he was a 20-point per game scorer and could grab around 11 to 12 rebounds on a night-to-night basis in some seasons. People really forget that this was an undersized player at sometimes playing the power forward position in his career, and was still able to give you around 12 rebounds a game at 6'7". I mean, we praise guys like Charles Barkley or even other undersized power forwards, but we never never give guys like Shawn Marion the credit that they deserve. I mean, this was a guy that was really the heart and soul of the defense, or at least the somewhat defense that the Phoenix Suns had during those 05 to 07 years where Steve Nash won back-to-back MVPs. He was very valuable to that team, and I don't think he gets enough credit, as a lot of that credit goes to Steve Nash and Mike D'Antoni, which I understand, but we gotta give credit to guys like Shawn Marion, because Shawn Marion was there before Steve Nash even got there, and he was still putting up great Hall of Fame caliber numbers, and was not only great on the offensive side of the ball, but was also great on the defensive side of the ball. Shawn Marion is definitely one of the more underrated players, not just of the 2000s, but of all time, and I really want people to give him the credit that he deserves. Chris Webber is just merely a victim of circumstance. This is a guy that played in Sacramento for a good portion of his career, a 5-time All-Star, a 5-time All-NBA performer, and was a consistent 20 and 10 guy in the 2000s, which was probably the toughest era for any power forward to play in, as you already have Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, and Dirk Nowitzki all in that era, and to top it off, they're all in the same conference that Chris Webber was in. So when you look at the accolades that he got with 5 All-Stars and 5 All-NBA selections, that's still a big deal. This is a guy that still was able to get accolades in the midst of the 3 greatest players at his position. A consistent guy that could go out there and score rather efficiently, and also could rebound at an elite level, and he wasn't even the biggest or the strongest guy, and is a really good ball handler for a player of his size and position, and is also a really good passer. A lot of people forget he's one of the best passing bigs of all time. So why is he not in the Hall of Fame? Why is Reggie Miller in the Hall of Fame but not Chris Webber? Why is Tracy McGrady, a guy who couldn't get out of the first round, in the Hall of Fame but not Chris Webber? I mean, this is a guy that was one game from going to the NBA Finals, but we got a guy who's never made it out of the first round of the playoffs in the Hall of Fame, but not him? That is ridiculous in my opinion. And it goes to show you that flash and sexiness, they'll take that, but they can't take a consistent career of a guy who is leading a team to 50-win seasons and getting them to the playoffs and having deep playoff runs. It's ridiculous to me. I really just don't understand it. But Chris Webber, man, I'm really pulling for you. You better make the Hall of Fame next year, because Adam Silver, bro, we gonna have a problem. Now I know some people are gonna say, bro, Mustard, didn't you make a video about how Tim Duncan is the most overrated player of all time? Guys, I literally said in the comment section, it was April 1st when I made that video. Look in the description, check the time, everything. It was April Fool's, so everybody who fell for that, please, you look dumb, let it go. People still comment to this day how stupid I am for making that video. Please relax, calm down. Tim Duncan is the most underrated player in the history of the NBA, in my opinion, especially after what I've seen over the past couple of years of people saying dumb stuff online. And it's usually the same talking points each and every single time that are so simplistic and so dumb. For one, people like to talk about Greg Popovich. Greg Popovich was not always an elite coach. People forget that the Spurs throughout their entire tenure before Tim Duncan even got there were a good team, but were never anything special. They hadn't even won a championship yet. People forget that. And usually the second argument that I hear is the help, which is so dumb, because like I said earlier, no Hall of Famer that has won a championship, or should I say multiple, because there's a guy named Hakeem Olajuwon alive, but no Hall of Famer that has won more than one championship has done it without playing with other Hall of Fame talent. I'm talking top 50 players of all time. Look at Magic Johnson. He played with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Michael Cooper, James Worthy, and he also had a Hall of Fame coach in Pat Riley. Look at Kareem. He also played with the players I just mentioned for Magic when he was in LA, and also played with, oh, I forgot, Oscar Robertson, one of the greatest point guards of all time. And I've usually heard some people say that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has an argument to be the greatest basketball player of all time. I mean, when you just look at what he did in high school, college, and in the NBA, it's a pretty great resume, but I never hear anybody say that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar played with too much help, even though he had more help than a guy like Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan played with Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili and Kawhi Leonard, and for the case of Tony Parker and Manu, one could make the argument, and I firmly believe that they wouldn't even be Hall of Famers had they not played with Tim Duncan. So a lot of people really need to cut the cap on my guy Timmy D's career, because it's very ridiculous. And if you actually pay attention to detail on how great this guy was from the moment he stepped into the league and the things he accomplished just in the first half of his career, scratch that, you could even go to the first quarter of his career, people need to understand that a guy like Tim Duncan is a once in a generation talent. His accomplishments were out of this world, and he needs to be given the proper credit for what he was able to do during his time in the NBA. But that concludes this video. If you guys would like to see me talk about the most underrated and overrated players in the NBA today, make sure you vote on the poll that should be popping up on the screen right about now. Also, you guys, make sure you drop a like and subscribe, hit the bell to be notified, and also make sure you follow me on social media. All of those links will be in the description box down below. This is your boy Mustard signing out. Peace.